very special treat joining us in studio this morning is, well, we'll say Lancelot and Guinevere. Tim and Mary, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you in Omaha.
Yeah, it's great to be here for a full week sit down. That's pretty great.
Pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we have a few coming up on this leg of the tour, but anytime that you get the opportunity to have a week sit down, it's always really, really nice.
It's a pleasure.
What have you seen in Omaha so far?
I was in Old Town at the Old Town Marketplace yesterday. That was really cute. Some really fun shops.
And good weather,
charming.
too.
Yeah, great coffee.
And our hotel is fantastic. Amazing. So it's kind of, to us, that's like you're staying on a cruise ship with this nice hotel. So it's pretty fantastic. There's like a gate. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I caught the show Tuesday. Nice work, you guys. I
Thank
hear it
you.
all the time, but not what I expected. Going in, I thought Camelot was dark. And it is kind of dark, but there's also some bright spots in it too. It's when I thought musical, how do you pull off a musical with this? Because I had never seen the original, and you guys did a nice job.
Thank you.
How do you make something so dark? And although it's a tragic love story, but you bring that and you actually make us smile, and we feel ingested into the whole process.
Well, I think it's just very true to life. You know, in real life, you have these dark moments, but there are also such light moments. In the first act of Camelot, it's, Guinevere and Arthur meet for the first time, and it's kind of funny because neither of them knows who the other one is, except Arthur figures it out pretty quickly. So it's pretty entertaining, and I think people forget that the first act is lighter. But then, as the subject matter starts to get heavier, as with life, it gets a little heavier, a little more intense.
Yeah, and then to just make that contrast come out better, you want to start with things, and that's the whole thing with Camelot. It has to be this ideal situation that then goes south. So you need to take it there where it is fun, it is bright and colorful, and everything seems so optimistic in order for that transition towards sort of the downfall of things for it to be more effective.
I was amazed the tree stayed there the entire time.
Yes.
I thought, how are they going to pull that off stage? And it didn't. It actually worked its way into the entire program.
Yeah, and that was one of the really cool things, and I think one of the best things that I've heard from some audience feedback is that they were like, they enjoyed how the tree would then transform into other things depending on what the scene and what the environment was, and that people were sort of able to project their own image onto it by having this great big iron, sculpture on set. So
the lighting designer did a great job throwing the tree, because it's made of metal, pulls a lot of different colors depending on what light you throw on it, which makes for a really interesting scene change without actually changing anything. I mean, pieces come in and out, but the tree stays.
And people talk about the lights in the show and how great it is, and I was like, I really wish I could see that, but you can't when you're on it. Like, that's one of those things that when you're there, you have zero perspective of what that looks like. But it's like, apparently the lighting is great in the show, so I'm just gonna have to take people's word for it.
We'll come this weekend, hold up a big mirror out in the back.
Yes,
perfect.
please.
Yeah.
That won't be distracting at all.
I was thinking, twist your ankle and then your understudy comes on and you can be out in the audience.
That's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope.
Yes, it's dangerous.
Now, Ricky, did you see the blend appearance a few minutes ago?
Yes, with the singing, yeah.
And Mary, you teared up a little bit.
It's true.
I wanted to ask you this after seeing it on Tuesday. The song is all about the weather and the seasons and things like that, and it's very powerful. There's no question.
Yes.
Yet you don't do anything but stand for the entire 4 minutes?
Oh, I don't know how long it is. I just am enjoying it.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim does such a great job with
I paralyze her.
He paralyzes me with his stare.
The audience too.
Well, it's interesting that you bring this song up, because this was a big discussion for us with our director Michael McFadden about how this song was done. I'll let you talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you without giving too much away of the show, but it definitely falls in a very different place than it does in the original show. In the original show, it was sort of the top of Act 2. It was kind of that thing that brought the audience back into the show after intermission, this big, sweeping, beautiful ballad, and the song is gorgeous, no question. Now, the location of, it's kind of, as Michael kept on saying, it's sort of the 11 o'clock number now, and that scene segues then, that song and scene, the bedroom scene, then segues into Guinevere and the show
Guinevere.
The song Guinevere, and it just keeps snowballing the momentum at that point. But the thing that was so tricky was that that you've now begun to change the context of what the song means. And so lyrically, looking at what's written and situationally as to where it lies now in the show, this whole thing of how he can't leave her, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that. But then if you look at the scene and how things have developed now, it's more he's like, I know I have to do this, and I know I have to leave you, but I don't know how I can possibly do that. Versus in the original one, he was saying, no, I'm just not going to leave you.
Different perspective.
Yeah, and so it's just the context of it was interesting, which is just a fun challenge as an actor. But it's like what I was telling you earlier. Some people have now been saying that they love the placement of the song, and they're like, that's sort of where it should have been the whole time. And I think it was a great decision on Michael's part to move it there.
Well, and to continue off of that, it's just you were saying there's not a whole lot of movement. There's no grand gestures. It's such an honest performance. And at this point in the show, this scene is the first time that Lancelot and I actually touch and we hold hands, and that's the first time I've touched him in the entire show. That's the first time we're actually alone in the show. So, and it's such a forbidden thing that being close to him and just folding into his arms is. I mean, Guinevere at this point in the show is in such moral dilemma, because what do? You're in love. In true love with both of these men, and you've got one guy who, I'm betrothed to Arthur, but over the course of time with him, I totally fall in love with him, and totally fall in love with him before I even know I'm betrothed to him.
Because he's a good guy.
Because he's a great guy, and he's so strong, and he's so powerful, and he's such a thinker, and he includes Guinevere in all of the the talks about war. She's totally his equal, and then you've got Lancelot, who is everything I ever dreamed of. He is the knight in shining armor.
Not real armor,
he is now.
but it's like
and now here they both are. And what do?
You had us torn as an audience because we're thinking, wow, you little, what? Because here you are, you're married to this king, and next thing you know, you're falling for Sir Lancelot, which of course is the classic story, but wow.
And it's so hard. And Michael McFadden, again, our director, has given me so many opportunities as Guinevere to show the vulnerability and the honesty, but also the strength behind her. After the jousting scene when Lancelot performs his miracle, I come into the game room with every intention of telling Arthur, hey, something's going on, but I can't quite form the words. And so instead, after Arthur leaves the room, I sing Before I Gaze, and I'm like, all right, I have to put this away. I can't do this. I just need a day. I need a day to just not look at him, and I'll be fine. And then who walks through the door but Lancelot? So, we just keep going. But it's an incredible, incredible role to get to play.
So what else have you guys done? I know we were talking before we started here that you actually play Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. Yeah,
last year I had the really lucky opportunity to get to do the national tour of Beauty and the Beast, and was Gaston on that, and that was just the time of my life. And then that was my first national tour, so this is just my second one, and I was lucky enough to line a couple up back to back. But before that, I was just kind of working regionally in D.C. I'm from the area, went to school in that area, and just kind of was doing the regional thing in D.C. And D.C.'s great theater town, and there's a lot of wonderful theaters, brilliant actors, directors, everything across the whole gambit. And then just kind of was like, all right, well, let's audition for a tour and see what happens. And things got very, very lucky. So
lightning struck twice.
Yeah, you must have liked it. I mean, it has to be different touring because you're not at home anymore. I mean, you don't have that safety net of maybe family or even places that you're suddenly just thrown into new situations weekly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody says, they're like, oh, are you, I remember before going out on Beauty, and everyone's like, oh, are you excited? And it's like when you're first going away to college, where you're just like, yes, on paper, I need to say all these things of how excited I am, and you're like, you have no idea if you're gonna like it. You have no idea. It's like it's a whole different animal than what you're used to. But I took to tour really really well, and I tell people, and this is sort of that thing, especially coming from like working regionally, is the luxury that you get with doing a tour, or when you sort of book a proper Broadway show or something like that, is that when you just have one job to worry about and your whole day revolves around, all I need to do today is show up and execute Lancelot tonight or Gaston tonight or something like that. Versus when you're doing things regionally, you know that you have much shorter term contracts. I mean, a long regional gig can be 3 or 4 months. Like that would be a long.
And a short one is 2 weeks.
Yeah, and you'll be rehearsing one show during the daytime while running this show at night, and then you're auditioning for these ones at this point. And a lot of times you might have this side job that you're trying to keep going on, like a third job going on the side for when things aren't going. And so you're splitting your focus between 3 different jobs, and that's if you're successful. That's if things are going well. You can be having that sort of split focus. So that luxury of just knowing all I got to do is just show up and execute one part tonight, and I'm like, that's that thing that I'm like, you can't lose sight of. And it's a luxury.
It is like an all-day kind of thing, though, because you have to. It's not just doing the show. It's like
the whole day revolves around it. I'm like, I just sort of equate it like as like an athlete, where you're like, that's game time, that's the game, but it's still. And while your whole day does revolve around it, it's still, you're just like, that's it. I'm not debating as to what I'm going to be doing. I'm not splitting it between these different shows and this and that. And you're like, the whole day just leads up to that moment, which is great.
Nice. Now, Mary, you're a Midwestern girl.
I am. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and I went to school in Kansas. I live in New York now, so I've done a couple shows in New York, a bunch of plays and musicals regionally, but this is my first tour, and I'm loving it.
It shows.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like Tim, I've always been just kind of adaptable, so I love going exploring and seeing all these new cities and traveling around. It's really fun.
Yeah,
really
and it's fun.
And you get to see people that like I'm seeing people that I went to high school with that are like, hey, your show's in my city, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's totally crazy. And they're coming to see the show, or seeing like cousins that I haven't seen in forever. So
yeah, we were in California not that long ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't know anyone out in California. I was like, everyone I know is like I-95 corridor on the East Coast and stuff. And then just sure enough, I was like, after touring for a couple of years, I was like, oh, I know this. Oh, this person's coming. This person's coming. This, and I was like, hey Deb, hey Deb, like our company manager. And I was just like, people were coming out of the woodworks, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Like 3 years ago, I wouldn't have known anyone around here. But then after a couple of years of touring, you start to plant roots all over the country.
You have to get an auction paddle. Hey Deb,
yeah, hold it up. Yeah. So, yeah, you can ask her. Yeah, Have
you ever called her Belle?
No, but I even think it might have been last night. There's moments that it's like, I might be like, Mary, because of like Jenny and Mary, and just the ending on an E, that it was like, there was a moment where I was like doing it in my head, and I was like, no, that's Jenny. So, but no Belle yet. No Belle. I think that's easier because the characters are so vastly different. But it's something about the Jenny and Mary versus like Guinevere. I don't even think I call you Guinevere the whole
It's either Milady, Your Majesty, or Jenny. Yeah.
Well, it's a phenomenal show. I'm glad it came. I'm glad we got a chance to go. And then where do you guys go from here?
We're going to Colorado, Greeley, Colorado, and then Springfield, Missouri.
Oh,
Colorado
boy.
Springs, too. That's coming up soon.
Yes.
Yeah. We're good. Yeah, we're
sideways glance, too. I think the schedule is something like that.
Well, I always check before we go to interviews, but then, your brain fries.
Yeah. Right. Well, and we always give the sideways glance to Rosalie here to make sure tickets are still available. She says yes. Yeah. We always want to check.
You guys have shows through Sunday, a couple of them, daytime and a nighttime performance through Sunday. Tickets at 402-345-0606 or ticketomaha.com.
And one last thing we want to ask you before you go. How is it working with the Tom characters?
So much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Arthur spends the most time with Tom since he's in the scene with him. But it's such a joy to bring these young people in to do the show, and to have a fresh set of eyes backstage is really fun, because you forget. I mean, we've done the show, I don't know, 70-something times now, and you forget how magical it can be, especially from the backstage side, because you see the inner workings of the show. But we've got right now we have Graham and Elliot, and having them both backstage, during Act 2, you can just see their eyes go wide when certain things happen backstage, and they're just they're great actors. They're so enjoying their time here, and we love having them. We love leaving a little piece of Camelot in each city we go to.
Yeah, it's been I was just saying this on the Morning Blend, where it was like one of the family members was telling us realize how cool it is. And the scene with the boys, last scene in the show, and it actually does end on an optimistic note, the conversation between the two characters of Arthur and the Sir Tom of Warwick. And they're like, it's just kind of a wonderful thing to see a member of our community get to be that little like beacon of hope at the end of the show. And I was like, I just didn't even think of it like that. And I was like, but that is really, really cool. And I remember I was like, I would be terrified to be doing this if I was their age. I was like doing my first musical when these guys are like at their age, and I'm like, you guys are doing a national tour. Like it's bonkers. So I mean, it's cool for everyone. Everybody has I think it's just
and it's such an important part of the show. Yeah. It really, truly is. The audience needs it at the end of the show. We need it at the end of the show.
We did need it, no question. No. I mean, it was heavy when it gets down to the end.
Yes.
Yeah, no question. Well, again, Tim, Mary, phenomenal. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. We'll see you on stage.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.